Good morning, class. Welcome to our lesson on graphing inequalities. If you have not yet done so, please pause the video, write down the topic, essential question, and your columns so we can start getting down these pieces of vocab. All right, so we have 4 inequality symbols that we're going to be using. You have seen these before. Just a quick reminder, we should be able to name these outside of the context of having specific numbers. Just remembering that we read an inequality the same way we read a sentence, left to right. So anytime the inequality is facing to the right, that mouth is facing to the right, it means the first number is less than the second number, because that's why the mouth would be eating the second number. So we would call this symbol less than. This symbol is very similar, except it has a line under it. So this symbol is less than or equal to. The only difference between these two symbols is that this allows for the possibility that the numbers are the same. Okay, next one's greater than. The first number is greater than the second number, means the mouth would face to the left, so that's what we call this symbol. Greater than or equal to, same thing. The first number is going to be either bigger than the second number or they're going to be the same. Okay, so hopefully you recognize those at this point. If not, let's make sure we get to know those symbols. Okay. The other thing we're going to need to have down is when we use an open circle versus a closed circle as we're creating these graphs. So as we're creating these graphs, anytime we have the symbols less than or greater than, we're going to be using an open circle. And the reason behind that is because if a number is less than or greater than another number, it means it can get close to that number, but it won't be equal to it. So we have to leave an open circle to show that those numbers, that number itself is not included. Okay, anytime we're using a greater than or equal to or a less than or equal to, we're going to be using a closed circle. And the reason we use a closed circle is because this or equal to part of that symbol tells us the number itself is also a possibility. So if I look at 2 examples, let's just say very simple inequality. We've got x is greater than 2 versus x is greater than or equal to 2. Okay, very similar. For x is greater than 2, we're looking at all the numbers that are bigger than 2. So that includes 3, 4, 5, a million. All right, there's any number bigger than 2 works. But we can't just say it starts at 3, because then we're ignoring all the numbers in between 2 and 3. Again, this doesn't just apply to whole numbers. So 2.5 is also bigger than 2. 2.1 is bigger than 2. 2.00001 is bigger than 2. So we can get really small and really close to 2. But 2 itself doesn't work. I can't say 2 is greater than 2. It's not. It's the same as 2. Okay. On the other hand, if we have a greater than or equal to symbol, now 2 would be okay, right? Because it's true that 2 is greater than or equal to 2. Right? They are specifically equal. So this or equal to would let this be a true statement, even if this was 2. Okay, so we use a closed circle in cases like this to show that the number itself is included. All right, let's try a couple of those. So x is greater than negative 4. So if we're going to graph this, a graph consists of 2 things, a dot and a line. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to choose what kind of dot I'm going to use. So because this is a greater than symbol, I'm going to use an open circle. Again, the open circle I use for greater than or less than to show that negative 4 itself is not included. Okay. Negative 4, the number part is where I'm going to put the dot. So I'll put it right here. So there's a dot on negative 4. And because I'm looking for all the numbers greater than negative 4, remember the number line gets bigger as we go to the right and smaller as we go to the left. So if I'm interested in the numbers bigger than negative 4, I'm going to assign that point to the right. Put that right there. Okay. So every number to this side of the dot is greater than negative 4, but negative 4 itself is not. Okay. All right. How about for y is less than or equal to 2? Well, in this case, I have an or equal to. That means I can use a solid dot. I'm going to put it at 2. And because it's less than or equal to, these are the numbers that are less than 2. I'll put an arrow that goes in that direction. Okay. So this is what our graph of inequalities look like. It's a dot on a number line, either filled in or not filled in, with an arrow going either to the right or left. I'm going to give you a chance to practice that, so I'll pause the video here and let you answer a couple before we move on. Another thing we might see is we might see situations like this where the variable is written on the right side. So it's written with the number first, 5 is greater than L. As a reminder, the way we want to deal with that is we want to rewrite it so that the variable is first. Okay, so 5 is greater than L, that means L is less than 5. Notice the alligator mouth is still eating the bigger number, it's eating the 5 here, still eating the 5 here. The reason that's important to do is we might see this greater than symbol and think we have an arrow that goes to the right. But in fact, it's a less than statement, so the arrow goes to the left because what we're graphing is we're graphing L, not 5. Okay, so we want to need it in the perspective of L. Okay, same thing here. I'm going to rewrite this as L is greater than or equal to -2. So as it flips around, this arrow is going to be going to the right, not to the left. Okay, it's the or equal to stays the same, however. Okay, so let's graph a couple of those. -6 is greater than D. I'm going to write it as D is less than -6. So that flips around. Okay, which means I'm going to be using an open circle. I'm going to put it on -6. And my arrow is going to go to the left because it's less than. Arrow going to the left. Like that. Okay. Next one, got 4 is less than or equal to E, so I'm going to rewrite that as E is greater than or equal to 4. Okay, tells me I have a solid dot on 4, and my arrow goes to the right because I'm greater than or equal to. Okay, let's try a couple of those before we move on. Okay, last thing we want to be able to do is make sure we can write the inequality given the graph. So I'm just going to use x as my variable in both cases. Keep it simple. You can use whatever variable you want. But we're going to be looking at two things. The circle is open or closed, or which way the arrow goes. Okay. So here the circle is at -7. So I'm just going to be comparing to -7. The open circle with the arrow going to the right means this is a greater than inequality. Okay, I know it's greater than, not less than, because it goes to the right. And I know there's no or equal to because it's an open circle. Here for this one, this is a closed circle with the arrow going to the left. Okay, so that means if I put my 1 on this side, because that's where the circle is, closed circle going to the left means less than or equal to. So this would be the graph of x is less than or equal to 1. Okay, all these are the points on the graph that are less than or equal to 1. Okay, that will conclude our video for today. Make sure and reach out if you have any questions between 10 and 12 and 1 and 3, and I'd be happy to help. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next recording.